But anyway, so here I am with my scholarships, and Daddy, I can go to Cornell, and it won't cost you any money because you have enough money here for me to live, and this will cover the whole thing. And my father said, "You can't go to Cornell." "What do you mean I can't go to Cornell?" "You have to go to Pitt." "Well, what do you mean I have to go to Pitt?" "If you go to Cornell, that means you'll meet some guy in New York at Cornell, some medical student, then you'll get married there, and you'll never have any roots in Pittsburgh because you've never lived here yet. And if you go to Pitt, at least you'll meet people from Pittsburgh and have some roots." And nobody told me then that when you're 16, you can say no to your father.
You were only 16 at the time?
I was 16.
You had, what, skipped a class?
Yeah, I skipped a year
What year did you skip?
Yeah. Huh?
What year did you skip?
I skipped, I think, from third grade into fourth, and then I skipped another half grade in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So he said, no, I couldn't go on these scholarships, and I didn't. I came here, I went to Pitt.
Were you bitter or resentful?
I hated my first year.
But were you resentful at him
year.
for telling you that you couldn't go to Cornell?
No, it didn't occur to me. Yeah, that's how, he was right. I wouldn't have met anybody here.
Did you wind up meeting a nice boy from Pittsburgh?
I wound up meeting a nice boy, originally from Braddock and then Pittsburgh. My husband, S. David Littman.
Do you remember the first time you saw him?
Yes.
Tell us.
Tell it. Well, this is a whole other side of life. I was I was in college. I was in the break between my second and third year of college, and I was taking a summer course in something called it was in drama. I can't remember the name of the course. And at that time, my sister, Ruthie, was dating my brother-in-law, Summer. And she used to come home and tell me stories about these dates that they went on. And they went on these double dates. And there was this guy, David Littman, who was so nasty. He used to say the nasty, clever things to her. She really made her feel bad. So I'd listen after the date. I'd say, well, what did he say? And she'd tell me, and I'd say, okay, when he says this, you say that. And so the supervised dates went on with my being the supervisor, his not knowing it. And one day, Ruthie came home and said to me, David Littman says you're in his class in summer school, in this drama class. And I was shocked that he was going to summer school. He had been in the service with Summer. So he was 5 years older than I was, but he was making, he came back to school and wanted to get on with it. And so she said he's in that class and it's at such and such a time. So sure enough, the next time I went to class, I went there. I still remember where it was. There's a railing not a railing, it's a stone edifice that runs around in a platform outside the classes. And I went outside, and there was David Littman standing there, kind of leaning against the rail, wearing a suit and a shirt and a tie. Here we are, all these schlumpy college students, and here he was, skinny as hell. And it was David Littman.
Describe the Rosalind Margolis who does. How would you have described yourself, the girl who's about to meet her match?
Her match. Well, first of all, she's 18. And while she thinks she's grown a lot in the 2 years since she last described herself, she's still pretty young and naive. Still didn't like Pitt. Now, when I went, I mean, the level of academics was so poor, I thought, I got a straight 4 average my first year, which means a perfect grade at every course.
You're still pre-med?
I'm still pre-med. Now, however, I've messed up. When I go in to register, they tell me because I'm pre-med, I have to take certain block courses. Why do I have to take? Well, that's pre-med. Well, I want to take French. That doesn't come in. You have enough. You have enough in languages. You don't need any more. I said, I don't need any more, but I want more. I want more. I want to take French. Same thing happens in math, and then they allow me then to register, even though I'm still pre-med. I cover my basic sciences. I take chemistry that year, and the kind where you do lab work and so forth. So, anyway, that's who Rosalind Littman is. Margolis is.
You thought of yourself as sort of worldly, or?
Well, not really worldly, but I thought of myself as having been exposed to a more worldly part of the world than the Pittsburgh people I met here. I just thought that I had a more sophisticated exposure to life than most of them did. But I was no big cheese. I was 18 years old.
Were you intrigued when you first saw Dad? Were you
Well, first of all, when I saw him, in a suit, it was a powder blue, but in a suit and tie in school, it was amazing. I didn't know then. I didn't reckon in. He was going to work from there. He and his brothers owned a car dealership, and in 1945, a car dealership was a gold mine. There were no cars. And so to the extent you got cars, you had a very, very hot saleable item. So anyway, he was dressed for work. He was taking these courses because he wanted to finish with school and get his degree. And that he wouldn't consider not doing. But although he didn't at that time know that he was going to go on to graduate school. So I thought that it was unusual to be in a coat and tie. Secondly, I knew he was 23 years old, which was like 100 to me. It was 23 years old, and he had spent 3 years abroad in India. So to me, here was this sophisticated older man who was the friend of my brother-in-law, who was my sister's bane of existence, and that's kind of who he was. So he was intriguing.
Yeah.
And we began to talk after class and so forth. His ulterior motive, I realized later, was I used to go to class and I took notes. I was a good student, the model kind of student. Took notes, teacher said, I wrote it down. Later I looked at it, the worst kind of learning you can do, and then I'd regurgitate it in my head. So I did well in all the exams. It turns out the one thing that he and I agreed on our first conversation was that Ruth, my sister, and Summer, his closest friend, would certainly not have a permanent relationship. They were certainly never going to get married or anything like that. 3 weeks later, they announced their engagement. And they set the wedding for the day we were having our finals. They made it late enough that we'd be able to finish our final and then come straight to the wedding ceremony because he was the best man and I was the maid of honor. Between that date and the actual wedding, I saw Dad a few times because he was starting to study for the exams, and of course he didn't have a note, but he knew somebody who had notes, and so he asked her if they could study together for the exam, which they did. So they got to spend a little time that way in the library and here and there, and the one thing they still agreed on was Ruthie and Summer really were not meant for each other. The two of them studied together, and it came the day of the wedding. It was planned that they would go to their class, take their exams, take their clothes along. Daddy had a car, of course, and so he would drive me to the temple. We would dress there, and then we would be there in time for the wedding. So that's what came to pass. That's what we did. But he said to me when my mother decided at the last minute that they would entertain some friends, and so they had ordered a special cake. Joyce's was a bakery here that made this special case with a cake with thick cream, thick custard, and big slabs of freshly grated coconut. Daddy loved that. You're shaking your head because you know how Daddy felt about the coconut. And I said that I would pick it up. Daddy said he would drive me there so I could pick it up and take it home, which was one of the friendliest things he had done up till then. And so he takes me, and we're driving to Joyce's, and he says to me, are you going to go to the game tonight? And I said, no, what game? Well, the Pirates are playing, and, you know, Summer and I have tickets to the games. Who's using Summer's ticket? And I said, well, I don't know, but I'm not. In fact, I have a formal tonight. I have a date tonight. I'm going to a formal. Okay. So he drives me there. We talk. And I go up, I get the cake, I come down, he drives me back to my mother's to deliver it. And as he's getting out of the car, he says, if you find that you're not busy tonight, my phone number where you can reach me is, and he proceeds to give me the phone number. And genius, sophisticated little Rosie gets out of the car, thank you very much. And I'm thinking, what's he mean if I find I'm not busy tonight? I told him I'm busy tonight. But what could he mean by that? Well, whatever he meant, I figured it out because I found I wasn't busy that night. And I canceled going to a formal. The guy probably rented a formal.
It was a formal dance. Do you remember who it was?
Yes, his name was Stanley Ratner. I don't think I've ever seen him since, and I'm not looking to either. But I wound up going to the baseball game with Daddy.
So you cut him and said, I find I'm free.
I said, yeah, turns out I can come after all. So that was very glamorous for me. He picked me up in a car. He, we were going to seats with all these grown-ups. And so that was our first date.
And did you begin to go steady pretty much right away?
We began to see each other regularly. Well, Daddy had a girlfriend.
Okay.
So it was very hard to go steady when Daddy had a girlfriend. And he had dated this woman. She's still alive. He dated her from the time they were in high school. She went on to college. She went to Chatham here. And he wrote to her during the war, and she wrote to him. Her name was Carolyn Kozel. And when I went out with Daddy, you know, after the game that night, Summer told Ruthie, well, if he gets married to anybody, she shouldn't be going out with him. He's too old for her. He's too sophisticated for her. He'll break her heart. And besides, if he marries anybody, it'll be Karen Kozel. So I said, well, he might be sophisticated. He might be too old for me. He might be all these things, but she ain't going to fold for any Carolyn Kozel. So we started dating, and it became more and more regular. We saw Carolyn through her wedding during the courtship. We went together for 3 years, and then we got married.
So until how long were you?
The other woman?
Yeah.
At age 18, it's a little hard to be the other woman. But and also, she was at school, so she wasn't that available regularly. And he had never pronounced for or declared for going steady or anything like that. So it wasn't like we were breaking an engagement. We weren't. It was just that everybody said if he gets married, that's who we'll marry. But they were wrong. He got married, and that wasn't who he married.
So describe him a little as he was when you were courting. If someone had asked you then, what's your boyfriend or this guy that you've been seeing a lot? What's he like?
Well, he was really fascinating. Principally, I would say, because he had this mixture of street smarts, which he got from Braddock, where he was born and raised till high school, and loved Braddock, and sensitive guy who loved poetry and drama and speech, took speech in school and was just very sensitive is the right word, and thoughtful and intelligent. He was this mixture of things. And to me, I mean, at 23, having been to India, he was as sophisticated as they come. But he was intelligent, really smart, and he knew an awful lot. He knew a lot about the world.
Was his worldliness daunting to you?
Daunting? Not daunting. Challenging. Yeah, well, to my father it was. My father didn't like my going out with him at all. He was way too old. And Daddy liked to go out late, and my father would say, "That boy changes his days into nights." Ow, and he takes you to saloons. A saloon was somewhere where they served alcohol.
Yeah, tell us what would be, as you began to go steady, what would be your kind of mainstay regular dates? What would you do?
Maybe we'd go to a movie. We would go to the games. We went to drive-ins a lot back then. There were drive-in movies. I remember getting a triple hamburger at a hamburger joint we used to go to and taking it to a drive-in movie where I ate it, a triple hamburger. The theater. He loved the theater. We went to New York. His sister was our chaperone. Ugh. But we went to New York twice. Went to the theater. He
Who
loved the
insisted
theater.
on a chaperone? That doesn't sound like something Dad would tolerate.
My father.
Okay.
With that boy who turns his nights into days. Yeah, my father. I wouldn't even suggest going without one. Oh, my God.
So that wasn't an unusual thing to have a chaperone at the...
Well, it was an unusual thing to go somewhere with a guy where presumably you're not going to stay with him.
Right.
So.
Okay, burger joints, games. Was he a gentleman?
Yes. In some ways, and in other ways, he wasn't. He was, as I said, he had street smarts, but he had the sensitivity that went with him. So it's kind of hard to describe him in terms like, was he a gentleman? He was rather unique. He was really unique.
What about, do you remember first meeting his family? You mentioned his sister. I think you talked about brothers.
Eugene. When we went to the baseball games, he introduced me to all the brothers. And I said something about, well, he doesn't really look like any of you. Oh, Eugene said, oh, no, well, he's adopted. and I said, oh, yeah. And I believed him. Daddy didn't look like any of his brothers. But he was a lot younger than all of his siblings. When Archie, his oldest sibling was Archie, and Archie had 3 kids, Joe, Cheech, and Diane. Joe was like a regular on our dates. He went out with us. He was with me. Daddy taught me how to drive because I couldn't drive, and I used to live only a few blocks from him. So at night, when we'd come home, he'd let me take the car and then come get him in the morning in case he wasn't up. I could wake him up. But
and that was a real possibility, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He loved to sleep in the morning, and between Archie and Daddy, there were more years than between Joe and Daddy. And Joe did become a regular on our day. In fact, when I came back from my honeymoon, a couple days after I was back, the phone rings. Hello? Roz, it's Joe. Oh, hi, Joe. Can I come over yet and sleep?
You remember your honeymoon? Well, first, I've got your wedding album here. Want to take a look at it and just stop where the spirit moves you, and tell us a thing or two.
Yeah, we need a new wedding album.
We need a new wedding album. Yes.
I like that picture.
He does look skinny, doesn't he?
Oh, he was 135 pounds. That's me getting my veil fixed. We had we scheduled our wedding. I was a junior then, and Daddy was a senior in law school. And there was school going on.
So second year student and third year student.
Second and third, 2L, 3L. And they didn't call us that when we went to school. They called it junior and senior. But we scheduled it. There were only 4 days off for Thanksgiving, off classes. So we thought, well, we'll get married the day before, and then we'll have 4 days for our honeymoon, and not miss school. Harry Margolis, his daughter, wasn't going to miss school to get married. So we scheduled it then, the day before, the 22nd, and as it turned out, we got married, and instead of a 4-day honeymoon, there was that huge snow, 50 inches of snow fell, and all the schools and everything stopped functioning for about a week. I always said the angels cried so when Daddy got married, when Daddy came out of circulation. There I am. You know, there's a piece of my wedding dress in your
chuppah.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
My mom, my grandma. See, we all have slender ankles.
That's a Margolis trait.
I think so. I think we all had nice legs.
That's
My father looks exactly as he felt. He looks like he's about to burst into tears. He really does.
He was sentimental.
My father. Yeah, and I was his special.
How did he? Was he supportive of the wedding?
Oh yeah.
By the time.
By the time we got married, 3.5 years.
That's a long courtship back then.
Yeah, oh my God! And
When's he gonna?
my father came to me one day and said, "Ask that boy what are his intentions." I'm serious.
How long have you been going out?
2 years. Sweet. Really sweet. There's Ruth and Summer.
Uh-huh.
Only one left in this picture is Summer and me.
Right.
So that's Daddy's sister, the one he came to live with, Lassie. That's what he looked like. Skinny, skinny, skinny.
And who do we have on his?
Sarah, his mother, and Harry, his father.
Do you remember them pretty well?
I remember them pretty well. Harry was already sick, so it.
When you met.
So
you didn't really know him.
I didn't really know him in the good years. I knew about him. I knew he was supposedly
That's all right,
brilliant.
I've got that.
Oh wow!
I've got that. Don't worry.
All right. These are all. This picture is called Water because it's all the in-laws, and Herman, who was an in-law.
So these are all the spouses of the
These
five
are the
Whitman
spouses
siblings.
of the five, and we were all called Water. Herman said.
Okay.
Eugene and Sally, Summer and Ruth.
So tell us who we have here.
Rishi,
Uh-huh.
it's the brothers and their parents. Daddy, Eugene. Eugene looks like a mafia hitman.
Uh-huh.
Labe, Rishi. All of their nicknames are Yiddish. Rishi, Labe, Yunk, and Archie. Archie's name is Raymond.
And what do they call Dad?
Duddy.
That's what his family called him, right?
That's what his family called him, Duddy.
Okay. And this last is a picture I've seen before.
But before we go to that, not only does his family call him Duddy, when he graduated from law school, and Leonard came to the ceremony, put his arms around him and said, "Congratulations, baby." And this picture that you've seen before is Well, it's everybody in the families that generation, plus Lou and May Simon. That's who owned the store with Daddy. You know, when I go through this family album, I'm astonished, this wedding album, that Daddy permitted me to have pictures taken like that.
Because
It's just not his thing. It would be
To
so,
pose for
so
you.
middle class, you know, but he did.
So tell us about your middle class honeymoon. What did you do with the big snowstorm?
Well, we were going to New York, so we were going to go to jazz clubs. We knew we were going to go down to the Village, and we did. We went to the Village Voice. No, the Village Voice was a paper. I'm really worried about that stuff. And we met the guy performing at one of the places we went to was Josh White.
Had you heard of him before?
I had heard of him, yes. I'd heard of him. I loved that kind of music. That kind
And
of
was it
jazz.
planned, or you just went to New York and said, "Okay, let's go see Josh White"?
Was not planned. Nothing was planned. In fact, Daddy was shocked at himself that we went. He really had planned nothing. But anyway, so we went. We kind of picked up Josh White. I don't know how. He became part of our entourage, and we saw him a couple of nights, down there.
Oh, you saw him more than once?
I think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you came back to law school. I remember a story of when you...
When I came in, my first day, law school was called off for a week. All schools were off for a week. We came back in, and we came to one of my classes, and I think it was my property teacher, called me. Okay, the case of such and such, what's the issue, Mrs. Littman? And I'm sitting there. Mrs. Littman, what's the issue? And he's calling on you. And I said, oh, and then I said, not prepared, which brought a roar of laughter to my class.